This is Trevor.
And this is Brian.
From History on the Move.
And as you can probably tell, we are on a train. We are on a MARC commuter train bound for Laurel Station in Laurel, Maryland. This historic E. Francis Baldwin designed Queen Anne brick station is a real jewel in the area, and we're going to tell you a little about it.
So sit back, relax, enjoy some mileage in between. It's not very much, but I think you're really going to kick out of this video. Alright, so we have arrived at our destination, Laurel train station, and as you can see behind us, this is well, we'll call it what it is. It's a permanent structure. And we don't really know prior to its building in 1884 what was here prior. We can speculate based upon Herb H. Harwood's Impossible Challenge book that we know for a fact that the B&O reached Laurel in 1835. We know that. But there were mills in the area.
Yeah, there were mills in the area, and there were of course there were residences as well. People had to service the mills, so presumably there was commercial and possibly passenger traffic, beginning when the B&O got their trackage and right away here to Laurel. But we know with absolute concrete, or maybe I should say brick certainty, that in 1884 this beautiful Queen Anne train station was built.
And so with that, why don't we get more up close and personal with the train station and let Brian tell us a little bit more about its beautiful architectural features.
Get up now, it's all the fuss about. Silence we can figure out. Tension stumbles through the door. Take a strong look at what you're living for. Another loser to ignore. Another drunk falls through the floor.
So the Laurel train station, built 1884, is a brick Queen Anne structure, and it's on an elevated section of earth at the end of Main Street in Laurel, and we're actually standing by the granite foundation and cellar wall. The main structure of the building is brick, run mostly horizontal. There is a row of headers, it looks like, right between the granite foundation, cellar wall, and the rest of the station. And then we go up to a very elaborate roof line, and we'll get into that later because there are a lot of details there that mark this out as a Queen Anne structure. So why don't we go ahead and, for the time being, go ahead and step inside the station and talk about some of the details in there. So the train station's been in pretty much continuous use for most of its life, and it did suffer a fire in 1992, so there have surely been some modifications to the interior over the years, but there's still a lot of original fiber here. For one, we have very high ceilings. That was something one often encountered in public buildings in those days, both because of the exterior size of the building, and it gives you a place for the heat to rise. Same with the double hung sash windows here, because if you lowered the top sash and raised the bottom sash and let hot air go out the top and cool air come in the bottom. At least that was the idea. It was better than nothing in pre-air conditioning times. Again, we've got some what appears to be original molding around the windows with the traditional grooves and a bullseye in each corner. There's some other newer windows and doors in the station that have modern moldings in the same style, so they've tried to at least keep some of it intact. But yeah, a fairly Spartan interior. It's a functional public space. It's not really meant to be anything more than that on the inside. And now we're inside of the bay window on the station, and this was an area where the station master would have had his desk because it allows you to sight down the line in both directions, and you could see incoming and outgoing traffic from this position. Presumably the telegraph key and all that would have been around here as well.
When he gets back up, you're gonna fall again. So gather round kids, all life hangs on the wire, and a cycle turning like a tire. Balance is a difficult thing, but in time I've learned it's everything, and every burden.
So here we are outside the station master's bay, and this is a great place to talk about some of the architectural features of this station. If you pan up, Trevor, you can see we have the molded brick over the window arch, and then we have a corbelled section of brickwork. It steps out, and then we go up to the tympanum, which is the sort of triangular section within the roof and eaves there, with the ornamentation that actually harkens back to English half-timbered architecture. And then at the very peak of the roof, we have the arcoteria, and that is an architectural element that's just there for looks, and it dates back to Greco-Roman architecture. Queen Anne architecture was very eclectic. It borrowed freely from other genres and styles, and it combined them in all kinds of inventive and playful ways. And in fact, this building is determined to be a fine example of 19th century transportation picturesque, which is a term I had not heard applied to architecture until I started researching this station, and it really fits it very well. Like, we have the deep overhang to shade waiting passengers, and instead of just being plain, we've got these beautiful decorative brackets supported on corbels, and there was really no need to do this other than the architect enjoyed the aesthetic. That's why they did it. They didn't do it for any function other than they decided this was the most aesthetically pleasing way to support the overhang. They could have had just a completely plain beam doing the same thing. So from this vantage point, we can really see the station's unique roofline, and this is one of the things that is a hallmark of Queen Anne architecture, both commercial and domestic. They could have just as easily done a very simple roof with a gable at both ends and a plain peaked roof going across. But instead, they've got a cross gable, and both roof lines intersect, and if you look, there is the gable that's over the station master's bay, and that's a prominent architectural feature of this elevation of the building. And just on the opposites, or just beyond that, you can see another partial gable and a partial hip roof. And again, they just took pains to make a complex roof line with different masses of form, just for the sake of being what they considered aesthetic, what they considered beautiful. And there was no other reason to do that than it gratified the architect's eye and taste.
And every prophet screams its own name, but I hate that game. Answer all these questions that are coming now, all the answers buried in the ground, screaming, oh the source when it rains. Well, you know how that goes. Since sirens calling through the endless night.
This is the part of the program where we cite our sources, and Trevor is going to tell you why we do this.
So as we do in just about every episode, like Brian mentioned, we cite our sources. And why is that important? Well, to come across historical facts and to be able to make historical arguments, we have to have these things in hand. And I used to have a great history professor named Dr. Robert Rook, I'd sit in his office at the university and I'd make some kind of historical discussion as a history undergrad. And he'd say, well, that's great, Trevor, but you need to cite your sources. So for this episode, Brian and I used a pretty good plethora of sources here. Down at the Depot by Edwin P. Alexander is a phenomenal book. There was a lot of great information in here. Now, he does not talk about Laurel Station proper in here, but he does mention other B&O stations and stations that are along main lines that are rather small in stature. Something else that I thought was super helpful, and you cannot go wrong with this, and you should really own this if you're a fan of the B&O, is the Carlos P. Avery book about E. Francis Baldwin, just called E. Francis Baldwin, Architect. Brian and I have used this one numerous times. You just can't go wrong with it. And R.I.P. Mr. Avery. He did a phenomenal job on this particular book. Something else that is super helpful for dates, times, and things like that was the Sentinel magazine. This is the B&O Historical Society's magazine, and this was really great for calling out things like the anniversary of the station, or when it burned and then was rebuilt. And something else that Bryan and I used was the Historic American Building Survey. And this is something that went on time period wise, I think it was 60s, 70s, maybe into the 80s, that the US government went around and actually did a survey of all of these historical buildings. And the B&O was featured in there multiple times, station-wise especially, with Mount Royal, the station that we're in, Laurel, and the Camden Warehouse, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you go out there and you read these books. And whatever you do, please buy your books. Don't steal them. And if you if you borrow them from somebody, please give them back. Don't, nobody likes books that just go pop, 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 and they disappear. Homeless books are not fun books.
Hollow corridors and neon lights screaming. Oh, the source when it rains. Well, you know what I do when it rains. Get on down, what's all this fuss about? This silence we could figure out. Tension stumbles through the door. Take a strong look at what you're living for. Another loser to ignore.
So, Trevor, every time we visit a place like this, especially when it's not a museum, when it's actually still a working part of the transit infrastructure, I like to think what it must have been like for people in 1884 when this building was built. We look at it as this quaint relic of the Victorian era.
Oh, very much.
But it would have been the equivalent of a spaceport for someone living at that time. Because if you were, middle-aged when this station was built, you're
50s or so.
Yeah, 50s. You would have grown up with the railroad. Your parents would have only known horse and buggy, and now you could walk down to the end of Main Street, and you could get on a train and take you to Baltimore or DC, where you could get on another train and go anywhere in the country, and then you could get on a steamship and be anywhere in the world in a couple of days. The world was already shrinking at a pace that most people couldn't fathom. So this really is
a time portal.
Well, it's a time portal. It is a milestone of societal progress. It's not just a quaint old building.
And something that I always like to point out in these videos is you should really come down here and see this stuff yourself.
Absolutely.
Don't take our word for it. Videos are very one-dimensional. It's like, great, thank you for watching this. We appreciate that. But come down and ride the MARC commuter line. Come and see this thing for yourself.
Absolutely. If you happen to be visiting Washington, D.C. or Baltimore, it's a quick train ride from either, and you can take a little walk through Laurel Main Street. There are things to see and do here, and it's well worth it because it's a lovely spot to visit, and I can't recommend it enough.
And, this is something that is crucial to keeping these stations alive, is seeing ridership in and out.
Absolutely.
And people really just appreciating it for what it is. So this is Trevor.
And this is Bryan.
From History on the Move. And as I always say in every video, get out there, read history, explore history. But most importantly, you make your own history, and we'll see you on the next one.